Hey folks, this is Bailey from Dankless Wargaming, and today on Dank Encounters of the Fifth Kind, we have Paul Neher from Hounds of War to talk to us about the second edition of the Hounds of War game. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, Bailey.
Now, we've previously had you on the channel talking about the game at HoosierCon a few years ago, RIP
Right.
HoosierCon 2020, due to the coronavirus pandemic, but I'm hoping today we can kind of get into the edition changes since we've been playing first edition for several years now. How long has it been since you originally made the game?
I think it's about 14 years since we released the first edition, and many, many games have taught us many things from the perspective of what gamers want out of the game, as well as what we didn't like. And then as the more we played in the sandbox, the more we realized what the game was capable of. And so we've expanded it and just kind of explored all the recesses of Pandora's box just to see how far this thing would go. So yeah, it's been about 14 years.
So it sounds like it's time for a new edition.
It is. It is. Yeah, this, I think the original version of the game came out the printed edition came out in 2006. So yeah, it's time.
No, I can agree with that. So what is the biggest change for beginner players that have never played before, going from first to second edition, in your opinion?
The biggest change from first to second edition, and which was the most requested change, is there's a very large appendix in this set that includes pre-generated armies, campaign play, as well as many examples of our thought process behind the creation. The players loved the game as it stood, but the biggest problem was the game was not for people who didn't understand the sandbox to jump into it and just have models that they could play with and stats that they could play with. It wasn't there. They would have to sit down and build that or reference somebody who had already built many armies. So we've included about a dozen pre-made armies in
Nice.
pairs. So we have a sci-fi set. There's a World War II set. There is a Wild West set. There's an Ancients and Napoleonics era set of armies, as well as plastic army men, because that's how we started. So those army stats and all of their weapons are included as sheets so that people can grab armies that sound familiar to them and just jump in and play. The sandbox is the best part of the game, but it's the hardest to get used to. So we've thrown all of that into the 2.0 book, and it takes up about half of the book, just that pre-generated information. And so that's what I think new players that we've encountered, that's what they're most excited about.
And another thing to help the new players is there's a app or a program that's being worked on too to help generate points, right?
Right. We've got a lady that I work with. She has been going through, and we've created, it's kind of in its clunky early phases, but it's a Excel generator. So you just enter the data in and it spits the point values out. It's by no means pretty at this point, but that's the goal, is to come up with an army generator to make this process even simpler. But right now it's in its working stages, and it's helping a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've used it a few times and I really enjoy it so far. It helps out a lot. It gets a lot of the early number crunching out of the way.
Yeah, you get a lot of use of cross-referencing tables and scratching on paper. Hopefully those days will be gone soon.
So for those of us that have been scratching on paper for the last 14 years, what do veterans have to look forward to in the second edition?
We have some of the things that we've finessed is we've been playing a lot of games with Magic or the powers tables. We went through all of the powers lists and found out talked to players, what are we using and what are we not using? Are there things that we should have for magic powers for our casters that we aren't using? So we revamped that list. Some of the tables have gotten cleaned up. We found some mathematical errors, and we've fixed those. We also have the ability to do air, land, and sea. So if in one game, you can have flyers, you can have divers, and you can have ground-based units. And so weapons affect those different areas separately, as well as we beefed up the fortification section. So we started putting fortifications and set pieces that players can bring into the game onto the tabletop. So
That's
that
cool.
has helped immensely. So yeah, the air, land, sea, or ground space game is actually a reality now.
That's really cool. And I remember when you started doing those things as an FAQ in first edition, and I would make mistakes and forget to give weapons that should be able to attack more than one thing and go, oh, well, I guess I just can't kill anything now.
Right. And that's something else that's been improved into the appendix is we've got notes, if you're going to design this type of unit, don't forget the following, so that new players will not hopefully miss some of those little nuances that make the units behave more the way that you want them to. So that was a helpful add.
And then finally, we'd like to know here at Dankless Wargaming, what's your personal favorite change going from first to second edition, other than it's finally over with at the publishers?
My favorite change has just been the summation of all the little things that we've tried. We've got a consistent group of about a dozen players who meets every month and plays, and just seeing the evolution of what the game has become. The core of the game is identical. If you've played Hounds of War first edition, second edition will be nothing new to you other than it's got some spit and polish that didn't have before. But the best thing is actually getting it all together. It's concise. The layout, the book itself, it just looks amazing in comparison to what we had before. It's a whole new look, a whole new feel, and then gives the players, I think, the sandbox. It's still the same sandbox. Unlike a lot of systems that completely revamp and redo, and you come out with a new edition, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to relearn. The figures that you created armies for in the first edition, 14 years ago, are still playable today. There are just things that you can add to them now, so you don't have to relearn, you don't have to retool, and so that's been my favorite part of this. Is it's just we have evolved the game without changing the game. It's more nuance. It's got more abilities and more things that make you think of ways that you can use special abilities to do different things that you never thought of before, because 14 years has taught us what you can and cannot do. So that's been the best, is just watching this thing grow. It's inherently the same game. It's matured.
Awesome. Is there anywhere where people could find out information about Hounds of War, such as the release date when the time finally comes, or is there a website that people can go to for you?
We've gotten active on all the social media fronts. So we have our biggest following currently is in a Facebook group. So there's a Hounds of War Facebook group.
Okay.
We have a Twitter feed. We have a chat line. We have an online presence, as well as link ties to Amazon where you can buy the rule set. And we're still going to be doing print on demand with the new book, so we'll have that link available to you, and Amazon is really good about getting those to us very quickly. So once the rule book is finalized and Amazon gives us a go-ahead, we'll change all the links, but should be present everywhere that you look for us.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for coming on today, Paul. We really appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. Look forward to playing in person again.
Oh yeah, I am too. Well, folks, this is Bailey from Dankless Wargaming, reminding you that if you like this video, please like, comment, and share. If you want to know more about Hounds of War or Dankless Wargaming, please check the video below. And please remember that if your list starts to tank, then it is time to get dank.